How many of you downloaded the Mosquito toolkit from the web and tried the simulation? If not, maybe you did not get the time, that's fine. Try doing it today, because unless and until we do it, we would not be able to see what are the problems we are likely to face. So we start off with the today's session with the hope that everything is fine and well and all the concepts are clear. So in today's session, we'll discuss about the...
What Mohammed Pasa is replying that he has successfully replicated what you have said yesterday.
Wow, that's great. So that's good. So are the slides visible and the voice audible? Shall we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can.
Great, great. So today we'll discuss about something called the SHIP networks, SHIP, and we'll try to see the simulation of the nodes within the SHIP network using the free of cost and the open source Java based one simulator. It's called Opportunistic Network Environment Simulator. It's a very popular simulator introduced by Keranin. I will share the GitHub side of it also, so that you can download the simulator on your machine also, and it will occupy very less resources. Preferably, you should have the IDE. So I will give the demonstration using the Eclipse, or you can use the NetBeans also, the two popular Java-based IDEs, what we call integrated development and environment tools. So the working on the simulator becomes very easy. So it's already discussed yesterday, the labs. You can go through my lab profile to see what all work I'm doing. And again, as I said yesterday, I've been fortunate enough to work along with some good students. And these good students are the harbinger of the team members. We create a good team, and we have been able to carry out some good quality publication in the year 2020, the latest from our lab. First one was along with the SAPNA. So it was the optimized routing in wireless network using the machine learning technique. It was published in the Wireless International Journal of Communication System. Now here we use the machine learning techniques like the support vector machine, the SVM, the KNN, the nearest neighbor, and we try to find out the optimized path between the source and the destination node in a wireless network. Another paper which we published this year, it was the Taylor and Francis Journal of Information Optimization Sciences. It was an enhancement of already existing profit routing algorithm. So it's a very popular algorithm we use in the daily tolerant network, or what we call DTNs. So the protocol was already in place. So we improvised it, we enhanced it, and then we carried out the simulation in the same one simulator, which I'm going to demonstrate the working of it. Some of you might be familiar with that simulator. Maybe you have worked on it also. And for those who have not worked, do not worry. I will start from the scratch, and then I will make sure that things become easy to understand. So these are two latest publications. Again, the papers are available on the ResearchGate. You can ping me on the ResearchGate, or you can drop me a mail at rahul@ipu.ac.in. I will be happy to share the publications. Now this will be the brief organization of our presentation. First is, what is a SHIP network? Though the full form is already there in the FDP schedule, so you will already read about it. How do we carry out a comparison of the SHIP with the IoT networks? What are some typical issues in message exchange during the routing phenomena in the networks? Then we'll discuss one of the most popular routing strategy called the epidemic routing strategy, introduced by Wahadat and Becker. It's a very popular routing strategy. Almost all the networks simulated. It was introduced in the year 2000, when both of them were working in the Duke University, University of Duke. Then we'll carry out the evaluation of epidemic routing scheme for the SHIP network using the one simulator. And then if the time permits us, we'll explore some future work and the open issues, how we can do the SHIP, more contribute in the SHIP network. So let's build up around the philosophy or the ecosystem of the SHIP network. So first of all, the smart networks, our very good own IoT network, which are very popular nowadays. You would have been attending the FDP sessions, and almost all the speaker would have been paying the importance of building and carrying out the routing of the message in the IoT network. So they're all web-based, web-enabled. That means they're all having the addresses, the IP address and the MAC addresses, 32-bit IP address and 48-bit the MAC address, the physical addresses. So these are all, we say, smart networks. But there are also the other network called as sparse networks. Now, in smart networks, primarily the nodes are in the overlapping transmission range of each other. So we say short distance communication. But what if the nodes are far off from each other? Now that is something cannot be catered by the smart networks. Smart networks are built on the fundamental principle of short range wireless communication. But there could be a real time scenario where the nodes can be far off from each other, may not be in the overlapping transmission range. For example, the example which we took yesterday, maybe I laid down an entire test bed of sensors on the ocean seabed, or maybe in the forest area, which is a huge area. So the nodes I have to keep far apart from each other, or it could be in the desert regions, which are again very, very vast, wide and wide. So I need to keep the nodes far apart from each other because I need to have millions of nodes to cover the entire area. So how do we carry out the routing in these networks? That becomes a challenge because nodes are far off from each other. So such kind of network, where the nodes are widely distributed, we say the sparse network, more like a term taken from the graph theory, where the very vast network is there. Now these kind of networks do not comprise of only one category of the network. It's a hybrid. So I can have an amalgamation of multiple small network constituting together or coming together to build a larger network. So now these small network which can collectively combine together, it could be the MANETs, mobile ad hoc networks, which were introduced by the Charles Perkins, a very popular network, and some of you would have already taught about it or maybe would have studied about it. Many number of PhDs, somewhere around 2000 to 2010, were done in the area of the mobile ad hoc network. Lot of work was done on the basis of the routing, on the quality of service parameters. Many issues were there. So a lot of work was done. A lot of publications have also been there in the area of the mobile ad hoc networks. Then we have got DTN. DTN is a delay tolerant network. Now the name itself says it is a network where delay is acceptable. So it's called DTN, which was introduced by the Kevin Fall. So we'll discuss a bit about DTN also. They came up later on after the MANET has already been introduced by Charles Perkins. Then the DTN came. Then we got the Bluetooth enabled network, a short range communication network. Then we got a wireless sensor networks, the WSN, and then our IoT networks, which is an important network nowadays. So a ship network, which is spread across a huge, vast area, because that's what my test bed is. So I have to bring together multiple kind of the networks to make a single network. So I will take an example also that how does the congregation of these networks take place to build a larger network. Now in such kind of network, the message delivery becomes a challenge, right? So we can have a live connectivity between the nodes if the nodes are in the overlapping transmission range, or we may have an intermittent connectivity. Means at times the connectivity is there between the node, at times it is not there. So our eye in the ship belongs to intermittent connectivity. Now the browsing what we do nowadays on the web or right on the FTP session which we are doing it right now, here we are having a live connectivity between the client and the server. But there could be a situation like a disaster has occurred, maybe an earthquake has come, or flash floods have come into the mountainous region where the network collapses, the real-time network, the wired network, and maybe good old wireless network collapses. And I need to build a small network on fly basis, on demand basis. Now, in this kind of network, objective is to just transmit the message so that I can reach out to the needy persons. So there we are not worried about the live connectivity. Our intermittent connectivity is good enough for the transfer of the messages. And then the P for the ship stand for the planned network, where everything is well planned in advance, or it could be the partitioned network, where the network is broken down into small clusters, and each and every cluster in itself is a collection of multiple number of the nodes. And these nodes combine together to form either a MANET or the Bluetooth enabled network or the delay tolerant network or the wireless sensor networks. So in planned network, you can think of node density well in advance. You know how many number of nodes are there, and the number of nodes in the network will remain fixed for the entire duration of the network. But in partition network, it is broken down into chunks and clusters, The nodes are mobile, they can move in, they can move out. So that's what the characteristic feature of the wireless networks are, the mobility induced. So it's always a challenge to carry out the routing in the ship network because of its sheer nature, sheer characteristic feature is designed like that. So and in the next 5 years, what we think, what I can visualize, a lot of work is going to be done in this area because it's like an amalgamation of many networks coming together at single point of time. And how do we efficiently carry out the routing in it? And beyond 5 years, what will happen? Very difficult to predict because night industry maximum prediction that can be done, it's only for the duration of 3 to 5 years because technology changes so fast, so dynamic. So it's very difficult to actually keep a pace with the things. This also just give me the click of the idea that when we talk of the change of technology in the IT industry, there's a very good thought or there's a very good quotation which I think some of you might have heard and you might have told to a student also. The challenge with we people is we learn the technology, then we unlearn the technology, and then we have to relearn the technology to keep pace with the things. And that's become a big challenge for the teaching community because maybe the subjects which we are teaching today may not have we have studied in our own masters because things changes so fast, syllabus changes so rapidly. So we need to keep update with it. So we learn the technology and then we unlearn, not to full 100%, but yes, a part of it. And then we relearn the technology because we need to keep the change with the things. Otherwise, we are going to get obsolete. So that's a big challenge. And I always tell my master students about it that once you enter into the academy and research, you have to remain on your toes. Otherwise, your students will become much more smarter than what you are. So we come to the delay tolerant network. We'll discuss briefly about it. They were first introduced by the Kevin Fall. He had done a lot of work in the area of the delay tolerant network. It was the entire network is his brainchild only. So if you Google his profile and you Google about the DTN, Kevin Fall has done a lot of work. So we appreciate the efforts and the work done by him in this area, which laid the foundation for the ship network. So initially, opportunity network was a partition network with intermittent connectivity. One of the best example what he took was what if I want to carry out the connection or the communication between the satellites. So the satellites are moving around. I would like to have also a communication between the geostationary satellite and the Earth station. So various examples he has took, where we say the live connectivity is not of that importance. Even the intermittent connectivity is good enough for the routing of the messages. That's a paradigm shift from the internet connectivity which we enjoy, but not everywhere we require internet connectivity. Now, those of you who were good viewers of Doordarshan way back in the year 90s, we used to have the telecast of the matches coming from Australia, cricket matches, and they were all deferred telecast because the cost of the live telecast was very high. So what did the Doordarshan do? Once the matches took place, they took the feed and then they relayed it after, let's say, 3 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours. And since India is a cricket crazy country, we still used to, we were all small kids, we used to enjoy those matches on our television sets. So we do not say everywhere we require live connectivity. We need to cater to every kind of network. Whether where live is matter, we will go to the live connectivity, or where the data is not critical, no live commercial transactions on the web are required, the intermittent connectivity is good enough for me because it's cheap. I do not have to bear high cost. And now the delay has to be defined, whether you go for a delay of 1 minute or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 1 hour. That need to be determined because that will help us to determine what should be the TTL of a message, what we call time to live, the TTL factor, because no message can live forever. As a web administrator, as a network designer, as a network administrator, I need to decide what should be the TTL of my particular message. And that will also set in the one simulator also, because once you're doing a programming, you also need to specify the time to live of a particular message. So primary objective is to exploit the opportunity to transfer the message over the network. That becomes very simple to understand. And the critical part in the partition network is the end-to-end path may or may not exist between the source and destination for the message exchange, because it may happen that the connectivity is not there between two nodes at any given point of time, and the messages get timed out. So messages drop and they cannot be delivered to the destination because there is no continuous end-to-end path. There is no overlapping transmission range of the nodes. So maybe a message is waiting. Okay, I will come in contact with the node B in B. It waits, wait, and finally it terminates. It aborts because TTL has moved out. Or maybe the node which is buffering the message has run out of buffer space because the messages keeps on getting generated. So node will have its own message to generate, plus it will receive the message from the neighboring nodes also. So there could be a problem in this kind of the situation. But nowadays routing scheme are very popular. We have also introduced few routing schemes that take care of this kind of the phenomena. So comparison of the SHIP network with the traditional good old MANET, mobile ad hoc network. In the case of the IoT, end-to-end path exists due to the overlapping transmission range of the things. Because we take a home scenario or we take an office scenario where all the nodes are very close to each other. If you take a home scenario, my refrigerator, my televisions, my door sensor, my CCTV cameras, they're all close to each other and they are all in the overlapping transmission range of each other. So communication is seamless. It's very good. Message transmission is very quick. But in the case of the opportunistic network, or what we say SHIP network, since the nodes are not in the overlapping transmission range, so the end-to-end path between the source or destination, it may exist or it may not exist. So we do not eliminate the possibility that yes, the end-to-end path might exist if the nodes become very close to each other. We'll take an example to see how does a message transmission take place. In IoT, the source-based routing scheme are very useful for message exchange because if the position of the node is fixed, node is not moving around, so it helps in the quick transmission of the messages as such. Because and then we can say source-based routing scheme can be very useful. In the source-based routing scheme, the entire path from the source to the destination is well known in advance. So transmission of the data becomes very easy. But in dynamic routing, the dynamic network where mobility is induced and the nodes can freely move around, so delivery of the message or the routing of the message in such kind of network is a challenge. So source-based routing scheme are not very useful in the SHIP network for the simple reason that the networks are partitioned, the nodes are very far off from each other, and intermittent connectivity is supported. So we do not prefer to use the source-based routing schemes. So those of you who have a good knowledge or who have been working in the MANET, even MANET classification of routing schemes on two broad parameters. We have got proactive routing scheme and we have got the reactive routing schemes. So in proactive routing schemes, the entire network topology is known well in advance. So accordingly we can decide on the routing protocol. So we use our good old DSDV, destination sequenced distance vector routing protocol, which helps in the transmission of the messages. Or we say the network is dynamic. So nodes are moving around. Initially we might have, let's say, only 4 node network, then we can go 40 node network, again we come about 20 nodes network. So the entire path or the message discovery has to be done. What we say route discovery has to be done for the message. Message will have to check out, it will have to ascertain that what is the next neighbor and how do I transmit the message from one neighbor to another neighbor to finally reach into a destination asset. So we prefer the dynamic category of routing scheme, like the DSR is there, dynamic source routing scheme. We've got the AODV, ad hoc on-demand distance vector routing scheme. They're all very popular when we go for the reactive routing scheme category in the SHIP networks. So in IoT, the faster message delivery is objective, but in the case of the opportunistic network or the SHIP network, even message delivery is objective. We should be able to deliver a message. That is what the objective is. We do not talk of the faster delivery. Only objective or the mission is to deliver the message with definitely with certain amount of the delay. Let's take an example to broadly understand it. Let's say we have got these 4 nodes. We send the number A, B, C, D, and as we can see, they are in the overlapping transmission range of each other. So it's a short range wireless SHIP network, and there can be 2 ways how the message transmission can take place. So in this case study, let us say node A has a message for the destination node D. Now, which can be delivered using the path A to B to C and to D without any substantial delay because nodes are in the overlapping transmission range and the quick delivery of the message can take place. So if we adopt the traditional routing approach introduced by the MANETs, the mobile ad hoc networks, we used to transmit the route request messages, and the destination on receipt of the route request message gives us the route reply message, what we call RREQ and RREP messages. So route request messages are broadcasted because it's a wireless network, and then from the destination, the route reply message will come as an acknowledgement that the path has been discovered by the routing scheme. So we can, the node A transmits the route request message to the node B receives it, so it further forwards it to the node C, and the node C further forwards it to the node D. Now node D can decode the message, can decrypt the message, and come to know that yes, this he himself is the intended recipient. So I am the destination. If I am the node D, I am the destination. So I reply back by sending what we call RREP, or the route reply messages. And in this way, the messages were getting exchanged between the source and the destination. So that's one possible approach, where the node A can take the help of the intermediate nodes to route the messages from the source to the destination. Now, those of you who are new to the wireless network phenomena and the theme, in the wireless network, we always believe that the intermediate nodes will help each other. That's the underlying phenomena, or underlying concept we use. Because if today, if I require the help of someone, tomorrow the other someone will require my help also. So we always work in a spirit of camaraderie, where all the nodes try to help out each other in the delivery of the messages. Because without the proper coordination and cooperation of the nodes in the wireless network, we cannot transmit the messages. So we always take that as the underlying assumption, the basic assumption, that yes, these nodes are not greedy in nature. They will not drop the message, because there is another track of the wireless network called security issues, where we got the black hole attack, the gray hole attack, the wormhole attack, the collaborative attacks, where we say these nodes are greedy, they act maliciously, and the intruder intrude into the network, capture these nodes of the network, and maybe they stop the delivery, they stop forwarding the messages. So that's another track. But when we do the routing of messages, we believe that the network is safe. There are no threats or attack in the network. Because if you start working on the security, then we will not be able to work on the routing. And when we do any kind of the research, it's very micro level. So you have to take certain basic assumption to be in place for the efficient routing of the messages. And what routing scheme is good? So there's a metric called message delivery ratio, MDR. So number of message delivered divided by number of message generated. So any routing scheme that gives me the good value of the MDR, we say it's a good and the effective and the efficient routing scheme. Now another approach, the node A itself moves around. So I do not take the help of the intermediate node because I don't trust them. So what the node A does, he himself moves around. Now here the nodes are, let's take around social carriers. We as a human beings are carrying our smartphones, our mobile phones. So we are carriers of these particular nodes. So as we move around, so does these nodes. So my movement helps in the transmission of the messages. So there's a full-fledged social network and social community-based work which build around this kind of the phenomena only, where we got a community, then we got a cluster head, and the cluster head acts as a base station, and it acts as pivotal. It acts as the primary key point for the transmission and the exchange of the messages. Carrying on with this in the ship network, now we take certain assumption, and what we do here, we go for the partition network. So here we break down the network into small parts. So we got the first part of the first cluster with the nodes A and B in the overlapping transmission range. Then the second cluster, node D and E in the overlapping transmission range. Then the third and the fourth cluster having a single isolation node, node A and F. So in this kind of scenario, if node B has a message for the node D, which cannot be delivered in the current scenario using the routing scheme for the mobile ad hoc networks as well as for the ship networks, only for the mobile ad hoc network. Now what do we do? Our IoT fails at this point of time. Our MANET fails at this point of time. Our Bluetooth fails at this point of time, because there the partition has come, the nodes have moved off very far off from each other, and we still want to exchange the messages. So what do we do in this kind of scenario? Messages at node B are bound to suffer the delay, and node B will have to wait for an opportunity to forward the message. So what will the node B do? there are messages getting generated at the node B itself, plus it is also receiving the message from the node C. So if the node C want to transfer the message to the node F, it forwards it to the node B. But what happens in the node B? Everything comes to stop. So we use something called the store, carry, and forward mechanism. What we call the SCAFO concept: store, carry, and forward. SCAFO. So node B will store the message. Then it will carry the message if it moves around. But in this case, it is not moving around. So it is waiting for some opportunity to come. So any other node that will come into its close vicinity, it will just forward the message to it. So we say store, carry, and forward. So we are storing the message and you're carrying it. How long the node will carry? As long as the message TTL remains in the positive. The moment it comes to 0, the node B will drop that particular message. So the message generated by the node C will have a TTL factor attached to it. Or maybe the node B runs out of buffer space. That's another problem area. In the wireless network, we talk of the handheld phones, the smartphones, and all these phones have a limited amount of the buffer space. So they can't, the node messages cannot live forever. So we might have certain scheduling algorithms in place that how do you manage the messages in the buffer of the node. So maybe it could be the shortage of first, like if you've got various scheduling algorithm, the FIFO, the LIFO, the shortage of first, any kind of the algorithm we might use for the management of the messages in the buffer space of the node. Now our good old A node helps and it comes to the rescue of the B. So now if you look in this kind of scenario, overlapping transmission range now exists and the nodes are in the connectivity of each other. So now B can forward the message to A and A can forward the message to D. So the broken connectivity is now repaired, or it has been done for duration of time, because node A was moving down. So if the node A is moving at let's say if I'm a pedestrian, I'm moving very slowly. On a social network, my smartphones are carrying messages and I can be a good transmitter of the message because I'm a pedestrian. If I'm moving in a car, driving at a speed of 100 km/h, I'm not a good carrier of a message, because if you look for the mobile computing, so many we say handoffs will take place, so it will be a big problem for the proper transmission of the messages. So what will the B do? B exploits the opportunity and forwards the messages to the node A. So B has done its job. It has forwarded its own messages plus the messages which B was archiving on behalf of the node C. Now what will the node A do? Node A comes into contact with the node D. So after some time, due to mobility, node A comes in contact with the node D and delivers the message. Obviously, with some amount of the delay, because if you're talking on the broken networks, the partition networks, called the ship network. So A forwards the messages to the node D, and the message delivery successfully gets done from C to B to A to finally to D. So even in the partition network, with the help of the intermediate nodes, the mobility of the intermediate nodes helps in the transmission of the messages. And if the node remains static in nature, they are useless. So we always believe in wireless network, nodes should always move around, because that helps in the transmission or the quick delivery of the messages. Just like if you say we all use WhatsApp, in our so-called WhatsApp group, certain users which are very passive in nature. They're very lazy in forwarding the messages, and there are certain users who are very quick. The moment they receive a message, even if they have read it or not, they will forward it to 10 or 5 of them, because it's a limitation. We can't forward it. So these help the people who are very active in the social network. They are good they are good carrier of the message, because they help in the quick transmission of the messages, quick delivery of the messages. And there are certain people who are very lazy. They will not transmit the message. So we do not prefer these kind of the subscribers or users in the social network. Now this is the last category of the ship network, where we also bring the cloud into picture, because nowadays you cannot have a network which does not have a cloud attached to it. And those of you who are working in the area of the cloud, or you may like to work in the area of cloud, we should really feel proud to see that we in India have got our own cloud. It's called Meghraj Cloud, and it was designed and developed by the NIC. So if you are handling the cloud feature for your college or institutions, you can always go for the Meghraj cloud, because that's what we say Atmanirbhar Bharat, the vocal for local theme, because our own cloud, rather than going for Amazon cloud or a Google cloud. I don't say it's a cheap, the cost is reasonably good enough, but then we should be proud that yes, something which has been designed and developed indigenously in India. So in a ship network, we also add the cloud-based feature. Now the nodes can talk to each other in one hop. Node can talk to each other with the help of the intermediate nodes, as we have seen in the previous slide. And nodes can also take the help of the cloud-based connectivity. So we've got different flavors of cloud, software as a service, platform as a service, and the infrastructure as a service. So I won't go into a technical aspect of it right now. We'll have another lecture probably on Monday. We'll talk about the MySafe computing, and we'll briefly discuss about those computing paradigms there. So we take the help of these cloud-based web services, and these helps us in the transmission of the messages remotely. So nodes can be far apart. I can have a test bed here in India, another test bed in Australia, and using the satellite communication, using the cloud-based web services, I can quickly transmit the messages easily to the. So I can have my own private cloud, for which I have to bear a cost, or I can have a public cloud, or I can have a hybrid cloud, which is having a best features of both the public as well as the private cloud. So depending on the cost, because cloud, it doesn't come for free. It's as simple as that. We have to somewhere, somebody has to bear the cost. So cloud services are all paid. So, and they are not that cheap. Those few academic subscription that definitely comes, but that is only for time bound. Otherwise, entire cloud is all proprietary based. They're all they charge a good amount of the money. So we'll have a cloud which will help in the transmission of the message. So I can have in a ship network, I can have one cloud, or I can have the another cloud. So let's say E and F also share the message with the help of the cloud. So I can have multiple cloud within a single network, and they can all share the messages comfortably and conveniently with each other. So using the private cloud, it's become safety and security is ensured. Be ready to bear the cost, and then there's no problem in the transmission of messages. Now, if I'm also going for a communication between the nodes in the IoT network, so as we discussed yesterday, we'll have the two kind of the protocols, the COAP, Constant Application Protocol, and the MQTT, the Message Queue Telemetry Transport. So this helps in the transmission of the short range wireless network, where nodes are in the overlapping transmission range, or I can use the cloud-based web services to transmit the message in the wide range. Now, if there's a system what we discussed yesterday also called cyber physical systems. Now cyber physical systems today encapsulate the IoT networks, which will definitely have a sensors, because without sensors the IoT network cannot function, they cannot work. So the capturing of the data, the acquisition of the data in the real-time scenario by the sensors, and the transmission of the data from the sensors to the data centers for further data processing and the analysis. We all do it in the IoT networks. So those kind of this cyber physical system, the CPS, which involves the usage of the sensors, which helps in the building of the IoT network, where we carry out the transmission of the messages between the nodes using the MQTT and the COAP protocol. We call it as a CPS, or the cyber physical system. So CPS involves the concept of the cloud-based web services also inside it. And you can always have the wired and wireless. That is not a problem. That they were always there. Now the cloud-based web services have been added to it. So now this is a better phenomenon called CPS. So a lot of work is getting done in the last few years in CPS. And yes, we can expect more work to be done in the next, let's say 2 to 3 years. Beyond that, again, very difficult to predict what will happen with the CPS, or maybe we'll have intelligent CPS where we'll have the benefits of the applications of the artificial intelligence blended with the CPS. And our good old ship network encapsulates everything inside it. So it will have the MANETs, it will have the WSN, the wireless sensor network, it will have a DTN, the delay tolerant network, it will have the Bluetooth enabled network, it will have the CPS or the cyber physical systems. So everything blended, or what we call hybrid networks, what we are popularly called as a ship network. And routing is a challenge in these networks because so many features you have to keep in mind, and you will have to take care of the internal intricacies of the network, that which kind of topology exists, whether the nodes are static in nature or dynamic in nature, and what kind of routing scheme they are following, whether it's a MANET-based routing scheme or the proactive routing scheme or the reactive routing schemes. So we have to take care of all these things. So this is a good slide which I found on the web. By doing all this thing, what we are doing, the humans are getting hooked, and we are making much more nodes are intelligent. So nodes are learning, the machines are learning, and humans are getting hooked onto the social media. What we say typically the Facebook, the WhatsApp, the Instagram, the Snapchats, we are busy in that, but the researchers around the world are making these nodes much more smarter. So if I would have been taking a talk on security, I would have just blasted these networks that how vulnerable they are in leaking out our details. But then right now the talk is on routing of the message, so we'll just focus on routing. And the challenge is, yes, we do make these nodes much more smarter, but yes, we'll have to take care that it's ultimately human intelligence that should be the underlying phenomena principle for routing of the messages. So we need to make them smarter, definitely yes, but to what extent, to what limit, that we need to decide. Now let's look some of the applications where we can apply the ship network, because we have seen the theoretical concept of it. How does a message exchange take place? But what do I do? Where do I take these? So first, a good example is network of the nodes installed on the city buses running in a town. Now, since we have got our university in Delhi and Dwarka, so it is approximately 48 kilometers from my place. So that's a huge distance. I travel almost really that distance to go from my residence to my university. So if I want to now this far, the entire topology changes, the greenery changes, because so much amount of congestion is there on the city roads when I travel from my place of residence to my place of work. So if there is a congestion at particular point A, so we can have the nodes installed on the city buses because they are continuously moving around. So as and when the two nodes come in contact with each other, they can we'll have a transmitters, we'll have a receivers, we'll have a sensors, everything is in place, and they can exchange the messages and inform that do not take this route because there is a congestion ahead, because there's a bus coming from the left to right, and there's a bus moving from right to left. So when they come to the close point of intersection, they can exchange the messages with each other and inform each other about the congestion, that which so that the next bus can reroute itself and take the alternative path. Another application of the city buses could be where I would like to measure the atmospheric temperature and pressure in the entire hotspot regions of Delhi. So one option is that I install all these earth station, I install the base station, which will have all these meteorological equipments fitted in place, or I just I mount them on the rooftop of the buses. So as and when the buses are moving around, they are capturing the real-time data. And this data can directly be relayed to the nearest data centers or the control rooms, and they will get the live information about what is the atmospheric temperature or the pressure at that particular point of day in that particular season. So summer season variation, and the winters, it's all variation data is there. So our buses can play a very good role in the transmission of the messages using a ship network. Or we can have the communication devices installed on the planets, leading to the concept of IPN, so called the Interplanetary Project. This was a keyhole project introduced by Kevin Fall when he was working in close coordination with NASA. That how do we carry out the exchange of messages between the so many number of satellites which are there in the solar system. Man-made satellite, some in the galaxy, some of them are by nature also. So many planets are there. How do I carry out the communication of the messages between these planets? So if you just Google it, a very good project is being funded by NASA that caters to this IPN phenomena, Interplanetary Internet Project. So those of those, if you find out the students who are very good in astrophysics or physics and who like to work in these areas, maybe you can start a project in your own colleges, which can be associated with them. And a lot of videos are already available on the NASA site that talks of how to carry out this kind of the communication. Another application, nodes fitted on the human pigeons or the human beings as such. So we ourselves are the social carriers. We carry out when we move around, so does our smartphone, so does our laptops. So they can be act as a good carrier of the messages, and they can also, since they're moving around, their mobility will help in the transmission of the messages in the ship network. Or simply we just mount the devices onto the human beings themselves. So they act as themselves as a good carrier of the messages. More applications, they are widely preferred in disaster hit areas where wired and wireless communication is badly hampered due to the natural or the man-made calamities. So they are very good networks, primarily in handling this kind of situation, which are very vulnerable with earthquakes, landslides. So I can establish quickly a ship network in that particular domain, or providing communication facilities in the economically infeasible areas, like we have got the ocean seabeds or the desert region where not lot of population is there. So we need to establish a network in these kind of the domains, in this kind of the regions. So ship network is good enough. You can establish the network on fly basis, on demand basis, or providing a communication facilities in the difficult terrains which are not feasible for setting up a wired or the wireless communication. Even that is a good place wherein I can set up my ship network, where providing communication facility becomes easy. Some of the real-time deployment which you can Google, there are a lot many. In India also a good project is being done in Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama and the other Tibetans are residing. In India the work is being getting done, but they're too popular. One is a darknet and one is ZebraNet. A darknet is again an Indian example. ZebraNet was a network which was established in Kenya. First time deployment did was in 2004, where on the zebras itself they mounted, or they, we will not use the embedded, but tagged, the nodes were tagged onto the zebras. So tracking node was there with the CPU, with the flash memory, radio and the GPS system. So they would like to know about whether the zebras are being poached by the hunters and what is the count of the zebras. So this was the application which was done for keeping a track of the animals in the forest region of Kenya. So some of the key attributes are node mobility, communication range, what should be the sensing frequency, what should be the device power. So this is a URL where you can more explore on the Princeton University site, which was funding the ZebraNet scenario. A very popular network, a good publication have been done in this area also on the ZebraNet. And they were all communicating the message to the nearest base station. So they were always able to keep a track of how many zebras are there. And it was a good experiment, successful experiment, what we say. Another experiment was done by a company called First Mile Solutions in India. So it is called Darknet, and the primary goal was enabling the use of internet application in rural areas with almost little or no infrastructure. In the pandemic, the Indian network scenario has drastically improved because lot many companies are there. The technology is improving very fast. We see online education is one of the good examples. The online corporate meetings, the so many number of LMS has come into the being. So network scenario is improving very fast, and so in the rural scenario also, the infrastructure is rapidly improved a lot. But 10 years back, it was not the things. Maybe 10 years back, if government would have invested more in infrastructure and telecommunication network, things would have been very good in India even now. We are still struggling for 5G. Those of you who might have got their own friends and relatives in Korea, in Japan, they are talking of 7G there. So North Korea, don't talk. We don't talk of North Korea, South Korea example, Singapore, Japan. They are talking of all experiments have been done on 7G, and we are talking of even 5G here. So our networks are still struggling because nobody visualized the pandemic that so much of the dependency will be there on the telecommunication network. But maybe what I personally believe, if the government would have invested more in the last 10 years, we would have got far better connectivity with what we are having right now in our own networks. But then maybe this is what is starting point. Maybe in the next 5 years, we expect the telecommunication companies, both the private and the public sector, they will improve their network scenarios. They will improve the infrastructure so that we can have better connectivity in lines with the Asian Pacific country, which are really enjoying the good connectivity. So it was developed in coordination with the MIT Media Lab, and the idea was how to use the vehicles as our data mules, how the vehicle can be used for the transmission of the messages from one end to another end in the ship network category. So some of the typical message exchange which we see, we'll quickly go through it because we have discussed majority of them. End-to-end connectivity may or may not exist. Source-based routing scheme are not very useful. The message exchange is primarily achieved with the mobility of a mobile carrier. So a lot of the things depend upon the quick movement of the mobile carrier, and message need to be stored, carried, and forwarded, what we call a SCAFO concept. The delay in message exchange is bound to happen in the ship network, and it may happen that the message may spend more time in the buffer space of the node and really less time on the transmission media. Now, transmission media could be wired or the wireless. It could be any category. So a situation might arise that I do not have any intermediate node. So how will the node transmit the message? So they will keep on buffering it. So we say it may happen that the message actually spend more time in the node buffer space and less time onto the network. Now we come to the classification of routing schemes. So there are two broad categories. There are other many categories, but I have just picked only one of them. First is direct delivery, what we call a single hop routing schemes, or we say multi-hop routing, where we take the help of the multiple nodes in the transmission of the messages. Or another category could be replicated, where we'll have the multiple copies of the messages, or we believe in the single message copy forwarding. One of the problem in the single message copy forwarding is if the message is lost for any of the reason, it is lost forever, because only single copy of the message getting transmitted from the source to the destination. But if I take multiple copies of the messages, then yes, at least one of them is bound to get delivered to the destination. Just like what we did yesterday in MQTT, we have got three quality of service level, 0, 1, and 2. Fire and forget, delivered exactly once, and delivered at least once. So we have the same way here. We have a different strategies of the routing schemes. Now, one of the most popular routing scheme is called the epidemic routing. So introduced by the Wahadat and Becker in Duke University. We'll quickly go through it before we start seeing its simulation in the one simulator. So some of the prominent characteristic feature, the node gets an opportunity to transfer messages when it comes in contact with the other node. Now, this is a very essential principle in the wireless network. So those of you who are new into this is going to be fundamental principle. We always believe in the transfer of the messages. We always believe in taking the help of the intermediate nodes in the transmission of the messages. And every opportunity is exploited by the node. So let's say the two nodes meet each other for a duration of 1 minute. So 60 seconds are there, and both the nodes will try to utilize this time to transmit the message to each other. It is something like when two friends meet after a long, maybe 5-7 years, they have so much to share. So even if they're meeting for 10 minutes, maybe they're talking on phone for 10 minutes, or they're meeting in person for 10 minutes, both of them in a hurry to share their feelings and emotions and what all they would like to share with each other, because they are meeting after so long. So both of them are trying to exploit the minimum amount of time they have got, and they would like to share as much information as possible in that small duration of the time. So multiple copies of the message can lead to message flooding. That is going to be happen because in epidemic routing, the name itself says it is a replicated message routing scheme. For a single message, you need to generate multiple number of the messages, and that's one of the quickest routing scheme, because you have flooded the network with so many messages with the assurance that at least one of them will definitely reach to the destination. So epidemic routing is something like rumor mongering, and rumors spread like fire. So if you just spread any message, so immediately, and if you should share it to somebody, the next person will share with 10 more person, 10 more person will share with 10 more person, and the message replication happens very quick in the network. So aim is to maximize the message delivery rate so that the quick transmission of the message can take place from the source to the destination, and then to minimize the message latency. So delay should be as long as possible, and replicated routing schemes ensures that the delay is very less, because there are thousands of copies of the messages which are flooding the network. Same way, if you take an example of WhatsApp, in WhatsApp, if I just forward the message to 5 groups, now every group will have, let's say, 10 members in it. They further forward the message to the 10 more groups. So if you look at the replication of the message within the WhatsApp, it's very fast, it's very rapid, and so many duplicate copies of the message exist. Now the problem comes, how do I remove these messages? So finally what happens, the same message might get come back to you after 3, 4, 5 days, and there is no way how this message can be removed. Once I have generated the message, I have forwarded the message, I want to remove it from the network. Is it in my control? No. Is it not in my hand? Because once the message has gone into the network, you have broadcasted it, you have shared so many number of subscribers with number of members, and they further keep on sharing it. And it's only these service companies, the servers, the web service companies who are managing these our servers, they are the right person to delete all these redundant messages. Otherwise, the message journey never comes to end, and somebody will keep on forwarding the message to somebody else in the entire life cycle of the messages. So let's take an example. How does a typical epidemic routing protocol works? How we can go for the understanding the efficiency of it. So we'll have, let's say, let two nodes A and B. Node A has a summary vector. The SVA is a summary vector. Summary vector is a list of messages which they are a part of the node A. So two nodes come into each other. Node A shares its summary vector to the node B. Now what will the node B do? Node B ideally should send a request message. Now what will that request message contain? The list of the summary vectors plus the complement of the list of the messages which are there in the summary vector of B. We'll take an example how to understand it better. And B wants only those messages which is not known to it. So it doesn't want to duplicate copy of the messages. So the node A will carry out the computation and will only send those messages which are unknown to B after it has done the computation of summary vector of, because node A has its own summary vector, plus it receives the complement of the summary vector of B, and then it find out which are the messages which I would like to send from the node A to the node B. So that becomes an efficient mechanism on the routing of the messages. Let's take this example to have a good understanding of it. It is based on the epidemic routing scheme. So we have got one cluster having two nodes A and B in the overlapping transmission range. Then we have got another cluster which has got node C, and the third cluster which has got node D. Now that these two nodes A and B would like to exchange messages. One option was that node A will load all its messages to B and the B will give all the messages to A. So that will result in the increase in the buffer space. The messages will eat up the buffer space. So let's say node A has 50 messages, node B also has 50 messages. They dump each other message to each other. So we do not want that kind of situation to arise. So we should come to the point where the node carry out the computation that only the messages unknown to its next hop node, only those messages should be shared. So let's say take an example of it. How do we do? In the top part of the slide, the left hand side, we have seen the summary vector of B. So we said, let's say we have got total 5 messages in the network. So node B has a knowledge of M1 and M2, that is message 1 and message 2, and node A has a knowledge or the awareness of the message 2, 3 and 4. So out of total 5 messages, node A has a knowledge or awareness of 3 messages, M2, M3 and M4, and node B has a knowledge or the awareness of the 2 messages, M1 and M2. Now we carry out a computation, right? So in the first column we got a vector, then we got M1, M2, M3, M4 and 5 messages. Now we compute the summary vector of the node A. Now node A, if you see here, has a knowledge of M2, M3 and M4. So for M2, M3 and M4, we mark the values 1, and node A has no knowledge of M1 and M5, so the value is marked as 0 for them. Right? So we come to the node B now. So this becomes a summary vector of the node B, and we calculate the values, which are the message it is aware of. So it says I am aware of the message 1 and 2. So we mark the values 1 and 2 for the node B, and M3, M4, M5 are marked as 0. Now we carry out a complement. We calculate the complement of the summary vector B. So we get 0, 0, 1, 1 and 1. And now we carry out a product of summary vector of A with the complement of the summary vector of B. So if you look here, 0, 0, 0, we get 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, that's fine. Again 1, 1, 1, that's okay. Then 0, 1 and the 0. So now this message vector tells us that B sends a request only for the message M3 and M4 to the A, because it has computed at node B. The computation was done keeping its own summary vector in mind, as well as summary vector received from the node A. That node B will determine that which are the list of messages it expects from the node A to come. So it carries out this computation, and now the B will only send the request for the message M3 and M4. So A will, thereafter this, the A will send only the 2 messages M3 and M4 to the node B. That's how typically the epidemic routing scheme work, which was given by Wahadat and Baker. And this is the optimized way of using it. Otherwise, the entire messages will be flooded in the network. So something like if we carry out, if I again take an example of WhatsApp, if I've already received a message from the one of my social groups, and if the same message comes in the other social group, maybe the WhatsApp people will have to devise algorithm for it. First of all, the algorithm should check whether the recipient has already seen this message. If yes, then I should not receive the duplicate copy of the message, because at times it so happens, like a Diwali festival or so other festivals, same message I receive in so many groups. Since we as a teacher are part of many number of the groups, both in the personal as well as professional level, as well as the student group, some of the students, we receive a same copy of message from so many number of the source as such. So maybe the algorithm can be deployed that if the source, if the destination has already seen the message once, then another copy of the message should not be downloaded on his device, or he should not be allowed to see, because there is no point in seeing the same message again. It's a wastage of time. So why should we do it? So this algorithm can be deployed there also, but that is a social network. Again, they might have their own pros and cons. They might think 10 more reasons whether to do it or not to do it. So that's a different ball game altogether. But yes, algorithm can be designed and deployed even for that. Now, some of the issues prominently in vector epidemic routing, very costly on resources because you have to do computation every now and then. And one of the biggest challenges in the wireless network is the node's battery life. That's one of the biggest problem. That's a very good research area also. So those of you who are planning to take up a good upcoming track, the energy issues is an issue which was always there in the past and will always remain in the future also. Because in wireless network, how do we carry out a computation that consumes very less amount of the node's energy? The battery level life of the node should be kept as optimized as possible. Otherwise, if you drain off the node's battery, then nobody would like to do such kind of the routing. No node will like to adopt such kind of the routing scheme for the transmission of the messages. So generate large amount of the traffic leads to congestion as replicated messages copies exist on the network. So duplicate copies of the messages are existing onto the network, resulting in a congestion. And the problem becomes more severe where nodes have the small amount of the buffer space. And that is again a problem, because in the wireless network, nodes have a limited amount of the buffer space, unlike like our laptops where nodes have a space running into terabytes and petabytes. But in the wireless network, nodes have a limited amount of the buffer space. Though nowadays we have got the smartphones which are coming with the gigabytes of storage space, but then traditionally not everyone can afford that much high configuration of the smartphones. So normally if you talk about the low nodes, they always have a low amount of the buffer space. Now in the simulation, we'll see how to simulate in the one simulator. So there's a very good URL on the GitHub. So we just go to that particular URL. I hope it is visible. A quick yes or no by anyone?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Great. So we can see here, it's by Kiranan. It's the opportunistic network environment simulator. It's there. The people who are working, the contributors, they are already listed here. And this is the name of a person who introduced it for the very first time. So we can use all the comments by him. We can download the code here. The entire code is available here. And then we can carry out we can download the code, the entire Eclipse, the entire the zip will come, the zip file will come of the project, so you can download the zip. Alternatively, what you can also do, you can download the one simulator directly. If that doesn't work out, so though it says the one has moved to GitHub, and that's fine. So here there are certain tutorials also that become very easy, like Sahil Gupta and Varun Swaha. If you're, for the first time if you're working, it's a very good tutorial, good websites. So I can download this one version, zip file is there, so I can download it and run on my system. These are some of the routing schemes which are supported. So they're already listed here. And these are the name of the person who have introduced it. So they're all free of cost on the web. So you can download it and start using it in your own system. So creatable work has been done by like PJ Dillon has done a lot of work, Mayer has done a work, Mota has done a work. So and they've also provided the code like spray and focus router.java. So code is also available and that becomes easy to simulate on your own machine. So once you have downloaded this one version 1.4.1 zip file, you unzip it and your project will come there and you open the project in your favorite IDE. So whichever IDE you are working, you just open it. So here I've created a folder by the name routing, DTN routing. So once you open it, it will show you some of these files like this. So these are some of the basic folders which will always remain there. So one routing scheme. So we'll have a source folder with multiple number of the application inside it. So how do we go in when you say you open the IDE, you will say open project from file system, and you go to that particular location where you unzipped it, and then you can open that project in your IDE. So that becomes easy to deal with it. So you can see there are many number of the subfolders here, many number of packages, what we call in Java, application, code, data. University of Helsinki is a predefined data set which has been used in this scenario. Then we'll have the report, the routing schemes which are available here. So I click on the routing folder. So a lot many number of the routing schemes are available here. Predefined like Epidemic is there, the MaxProp router is there, some of these were used by our lab. So POSOP routing scheme and DSG. And then spray and wait routing scheme is available. So we can design and develop these routing schemes. Now, when we're doing a simulation, we require data, right? So we require the nodes, and we need to have how many number of nodes constitute our network. Now, there can be two ways how we go for this. One is having a data set, a real-time authentic data set, where I can carry out the simulation of the nodes in a network, or I can have an artificial data set, what we say the synthetic data set, which I will have in my own as an input to my simulation. So only two scenarios exist. I can either we go for artificial data set or we go for real-time data set. Since in India we always feel crunch of getting funding, so there are very good repositories nowadays. So one of them which I would like to share is Crawdad. It's called Community Resource for Archiving Wireless Data at Dartmouth College. So University of Cambridge, the UK, the Dartmouth College is there. So in around 2016, I went to Cambridge University to present my research paper in an international conference, and I came to know about this, that they are providing this free of cost. And it's a very good data set. I have used it thereafter. So what you need to do, first you need to register yourself, and thereafter they have provided these kind of, like, they keep on uploading the data set. So like February 18, they have uploaded a data set. Then if I'm working on GIS, source localization data set is available here. GPS traces are available here. So because abroad, they give a lot of funding for doing a research. If you look the QS 500 ranking or QS 100 ranking, almost top universities there, the amount of funding they get. In India, we'll have almost 50 universities getting that much fund, what single university is getting there. And that's why they are able to do high quality publication, because the funding is very high. And now today, the entire world is spending so much amount of money, billions of dollars on COVID vaccine. Almost so many companies are now continuously in a rat race to build up a vaccine. And the amount of money getting spent on the design and development of those vaccines is enormous. Means nobody has a total account of how many billions of dollars we are spending on it. And what will be the success rate? We do not even know that. So research requires that much amount of funding. It may happen that your experiment gives you good result right at the first go, or it may happen even 10 failures you might meet. So funding has to be there, otherwise we cannot do it. Now, about good thing feature about this Crawdad site is that all the data sets are actual, they are authentic, they are real time. So most of the research has already been done by these companies in the UK and the US and the Europe. And after they have done their experiments, they have uploaded the data sets. So now we, the Asian communities, we are always lacking funds. So we can download the data sets, and then since they're all real, authentic, so whatever you achieve the results, they are, you can always do a comparative study and showcase in your research paper that you have used this kind of data set from this particular Crawdad site, and Crawdad is authentic. So their data sets are actually valuable, and they become very useful for doing a research in the area of wireless networks. So if I'm doing an area of research in the mobile ad hoc network, in the Bluetooth enabled network, in the delay tolerant network, in the IoT network, in the SHIP network, I can always download the data set for carrying out a simulation in my simulators. It's a very good URL. I will just share the URL onto the chat box also, so that becomes good to work on. And you can also download it. You can always register there and download some of the data set from there if you happen to work in the area of the wireless network. Coming back to the simulator. Now, in this example, why I discussed everything, because when we now this is a basic file. It says default setting file. The name itself file itself says this is the default setting file. That means this is the file which is going to be used by the simulator to start up the proceedings. So we said default setting for the simulation. Now we give the name. Now this is the IIT name, so I've given the name of the IIT. Scenario.name is IIT scenario. Then scenario.simulate connection is equal to true. So I need to specify the values true or false, whether I'm using a real-time data set or I'm using a synthetic data set. If I'm using a real-time data set, then I need to download the data set, store it into my hard drive, the disk, and I need to specify the location. So that at the time of simulation, the data is fetched from the data set and then used in the simulation. Then I give the update interval. So I say scenario.update interval, that's the refreshing time. So 0.1 second. Then how long you would like to run the simulation. So we say 43,200 seconds. That is a good amount of time. So end time 43,200 seconds. That is the long amount of time we would like to, any time of time what you want to give, you can give that much amount of the time to run the simulation. Now everything written here hash indicates a comment entry, right? So we can skip this because I will be telling the code directly. Now we can have two kind of the connectivity within my simulation. I can have a high speed or I can have a low speed, right? So if you see in the line number 19, it says Bluetooth interface for all nodes, and the line number 25, it says high speed long range interface for a group. That means I can define two kind of the interfaces. One is a short range, low, small, slow speed, or I can have a high speed interface. So if the Bluetooth interface is used, so we can specify the transmission speed. That is a 250 kilobits per second. If I specify high speed interface, how fast the data will move or exchange between the nodes of the network, I say 10 Mbps. So 10 megabits per second. Then I specify transmission range, it's 10 meter. Here the transmission range is 1000 meter. So this is a simulator. I can design and I can set the configuration parameters within my default setting file for the one simulator. Now I define certain groups of node within my network. So I say scenario dot number of host group, I say value 6, you can have accordingly as per you. Then these are the hash comment entry which you can study later on as when you get the time and if you get interested to work on this simulator, which is very good because I have used it. It's a free of cost open source Java based. Only thing is required is you should have a good knowledge of Java. Then there are certain settings. We say common setting for all the members of the group. Now we say group dot movement model. Now in a social network or in wireless network, we need to specify how will the node move around, right? So we say certain model comes predefined with a simulator. One of the model widely used is a shortest path map based movement model. So what we do, the Java code is already there for this movement model. The executable, the class file is there, and we directly make a call to it. Now where I can find this, if you go to this folder, there is a package called movement, and then within that package, we have got a shortest path map based movement model. So I can click it over, and this is the code available here. And since we all use Dijkstra algorithm, So they're also using de Castre algorithm to calculate the shortest path between the nodes of a network. So the movement of the nodes can be like say a bus travel movement. It could be the uh, evening trip. The person is just strolling in a park, evening trip, or the random walk. If the person is just moving around in a mall, we enter the big malls. We do not have a defined track. We just roam around. We just do the window shopping. So just my random walk, or the transport movement, or a working day movement model. So many number of movement model is defined, and the code is already there. So you can have a look at the code. You can customize the code. You can carry out your own changes. Maybe you do not use the de Castre algorithm altogether and come up with your own algorithm for calculation of the shortest path. So the code is available in the form of .java file, which can easily be used. So we come back to our default setting file. Now we use a routing scheme. So the predefined routing scheme introduced by Wahadat and Becker is already available in here. So where it is available, I will just give you a brief idea of it also. When you go to the routing folder, so when you scroll it down, there is a folder called, there's a Java file called epidemicrouter.java. So double click it over, and then you can see the code of it. So code is already there provided to you, and then it is further extending from some other classes. So the help file will tell you the hierarchy feature is already there. So whenever you would like to go for hierarchy, you just right click on that particular file name, go to the open call hierarchy, and then it will show you that which all classes it is extending or inheriting from. Coming back to the default setting file, so we say what we want the routing scheme to be activated on the router is epidemic. So we use the epidemic router, right? Then we specify the buffer size of the nodes in a network. So we say 5 MB, so 5 megabytes. Then the waiting time, how long the node will wait for the message to arrive. So we say starting till maximum 120 seconds. Now this is something which can again be changed depending on the application which you are working. Suppose I am working for disaster prone areas. So I will not set any wait time. I want like it should keep on waiting. So I will increase the value very, very high. So it depends upon my application where I am doing it. The number of interfaces I am specifying here is 1. 1 means the short range, the Bluetooth interface, because we have got 2 interfaces here, the high speed and the low speed. So we specify the Bluetooth interface, and we also specify the interface 1. So group.interface 1 is equal to Bluetooth interface. So Bluetooth interface parameters will get activated. Now, if the person is moving around, so we specify the walking speed. So it says 0.5 to 1.5 kilometer per hour. That we specify as a speed for the members of the group. Then how long the message should survive. So we specify a very long time. So message TTL is set to be 300 minutes. That is 5 hours, because it's a shift network, and we know the partition network will be there, the clusters will be there, the nodes may move, they do not move. So we set a very long TTL for the particular message. Now this we are doing it for member of all the groups. It's common setting for all the groups. I can have the private setting also for individual members of the group. So let's say I take the group 1. Group 1 is only for pedestrian nodes in a network. So we give the group ID and we say P. P is for pedestrians. Now we create another group of the nodes, which is car. So I say group 2 dot group ID is equal to C. And cars can only drive on the roads. So roads will have the digital mapping. So I need to use the maps, right? So we already have the maps file with us. So group 2.okmap is equal to 1. The default value is 0. So you need to set it. And we need to specify the speed in kilometer per hour. So we say 2.7 kilometer per hour to 13.9 kilometer per hour. And that can again increase or decrease, because every city road has a defined limit as per the traffic police of the city, that what is acceptable speed for the particular roads of a network. Same way we can have another group of pedestrians or what we say walkways. Group 3.group ID is equal to walkways. Or we can have a group of node which similar like a trams. That's what the city road traffic actually contains. So we create another group, group 4, and just like we have given the initial alphabet for every group. One was P for pedestrians, C for car, W for walkways, and T for trams. It's a 4th group. Now here, since it is a tram, the default buffer size for every member of the group was kept as 5 MB in the line number 56. But for tram, for city roads, moving on a city road, we increase the buffer size as 50 megabytes or 50 MB. So that depends upon us. Depending on the application which I am using my SHIP network, I can increase or decrease the buffer size. Then movement model, we use the map route movement model. Again, the code of map route movement model is already available in the movement folder. So we are just referring to that only. Now, since this is a movement model, it will, or nodes will move around on a predefined path. Because if you look in a wireless network, one option is that I start the code from the scratch. But when I start the code from the scratch, I am the person who will have to build a node. Now, I have the person who should define the mobility. I am the person who defines the network. But if you use the simulators, many of the things get easily done. So one simulator helps us to do a lot. Many things are predefined in nature, like the route file. So the entire file is already there in place. So here I'm using the WKT file. WKT is a well-known text file, WKT file. So that tracks the coordinates of your city roads or the place of the, because you need to move the node. Now, how will the node move? You need to define the trajectory. You need to define the coordinates so that the node moves around those coordinates. So that we all specify within this files. So we got the well-known text file WKT files, which will have the coordinates for the movement of the particular nodes. Then we define the route type, the wait time, how long it will wait, the starting time and the ending time. Then we specified the speed in 7 km or 10 km per hour, and how many number of nodes you would like to be created as trams. So number of hosts for the group 4, we keep it as 2. Then the number of interfaces, the serial number of the interface, we want to have both 1 and 2. So we will have the Bluetooth interface activated as well as the high-speed interface activated for it. 1 was already there for common member of all the groups, so it is already there, but default value, and the high-speed we have activated for the trams. Then we create another group again with the trams, group 5. We increase the buffer size 50 MB. Movement model is specific map route movement model. Now, moment you specify map route movement, you need to design the route file also. So let's say if you want to carry out a simulation of the nodes within your own city, like for example Delhi or Mumbai or Chennai. So I need to have the trace file, the coordinates of the traffics within that particular city road. That where is the traffic light, where are the buildings. The node has to move a predefined task. Now these things normally get done in the GPS system. So nowadays a lot of work is being done by the Tesla in the driverless cars. So the entire digital mapping of the city roads and traffic is being fed into the cars, the memories, the CPU, so that the proper driving can take place in the driverless car. Otherwise, the car is bound to hit certain obstacles. Then we got the route type 2. Then we define the wait time. And then we specified the speed, which could be the lower range and the upper range, the 7 km per hour to 10 km per hour. Then we specify another group 60. This is the T trams. We have the same buffer space 50 MB. We specify the map route movement. But in all these map route movement, if you see the different WKT files are being used. So different nodes will use different tracks to move around. For example, Delhi, one is going from Dwarka to Connaught Place, the other is going from Rajendra Place to Nehru Place. So we use different coordinate files, different track files. So WKT file tram10.wkt, tram4.wkt, so that the navigation or the movement of the nodes can take place in a different directions in a city roads. Then we have got route type 2, then wait time we define. Then we specify the speed, the lower limit and the upper. You can increase or decrease as per your application requirement. And then the number of hosts who are going to be a part of the group 6. So we say 2. Now we specify from the line number 113, we specify the message creation parameters. Now till line number 110, what we did, we have identified the nodes. We have given them the names. We give them the message TTL, which was 5 hours, 300 minutes. Then we give them the track files, the WKT files, and how the nodes will move around. Then we give them also this high speed or the low speed interface, the Bluetooth on the high speed. And then now we can set the value for the messages. So how many, even because we need to generate the message, right? So one option is that you create your own message, or you take the help of the simulator to generate messages for you. So there is a predefined class called message event generator. So it will generate the messages or dummy messages for us. But yes, when I'm doing certain research publication work or I'm doing a certain experiment, I will generate my own message. The content of the message has to be defined by you. But in this case, we would like the node to just share exchange the randomly generated messages. So we use a message event generator class for us, and we specify the message size. So lower value and higher value, 500 KB to 1 MB in size. Then the number of nodes in the network we are going to have. So we say the first node is indexed as 0 and the last node as 1 to 6. And then every message will have a message prefix. So I can have the value M, P, anything. This will identify the starting prefix of the particular message. Then we need to specify random generator. So we can specify the pseudo random number generator for the movement models, or you can write your own code to do it. Java provides a PRNG facility where you can write the own random number generator code, provide the seed value for it, and start the generation of it. Then we will need to specify what is the size of my test bed. So I need to specify the X and Y dimension, 4500 meters by 3400 meters. In the line number 135, we specify the warm-up time for the nodes to start generating the messages. So 1000 millisecond is a warm-up time. Now all these written with the hash are the comment entries, and those without hash are the actual code that will work. Now we need to specify what are the map-based movement file we are using it. Now this is a default setting file which comes with the simulator. Right now what I have done here, I have only done cosmetic changes wherein I have specified my own files. But if you download the simulator from the web, it will come with the predefined WKT files. So without any change in the default setting file, you can directly run a simulation and it will give you the results. Because I have done it, so I am that sure of it. But here then, once you have become comfortable with it, then you can carry out the changes in it. So now here I have specified my own files. Then if you would like to generate the reports, you can generate the reports here. If you would like to have any warm-up time for the reports, you can give it here. So we're not given it. So these are the name of the reports. So we'll have the message status report and the contact times report of the simulation. Then if you would like to have the other routing scheme like profit routing scheme, I've got activated here for 30 seconds. Spray and wait is a very good routing scheme. The number of copies which is getting generated for every copy of the message is 6 in nature. Then randomize update order, we set the value to because we want the message to generate in a random state. Now how will the nodes move around? So if you would like to give certain city image, so here it uses the University of Helsinki's. So there is already a University of Helsinki PNG file. So I will just show you in the data folder, it is available here. So by default the one simulator uses the University of Helsinki's PNG file. This is one. Helsinki, because that was a place where simulator was first developed. Then there are certain offset values, scaling values. If you would like to give, you can give it, or you can leave them as a default. The number of events, how many number of events you would like to generate, I would like to say 100 messages. Minimum it will generate that much amount of the messages. So that's how the basic configuration of this default setting file is. Now if you would like to run, so we can go to the core folder, and in the core folder we have got a file called settings.java. Now this is a file that has got a, if you just move it down, this is a file that will give you the path of the default setting file. So if you look at a location here on the line number 61, I am giving this path of the default setting because there by default when you will download the simulator, only default setting will come. Now once you give install and configure it on your system, there have to be location where this file is present. So you just have to right click on the default setting file. It will give you a location and then you paste this location here in the default setting file so that your currently active file gets activated. Because here if you can see here many number of things are comment entries because I keep on carrying out certain changes. So in the changes the default setting file values get changed, so you can update the change and then you can carry out the new change into your old settings. And there's another important file here which becomes very useful. It's called the DTN sim. Now this is a file that has got main function. So like just in Java, everything is built up around the main function. So if you would like to really understand the code of it, you set a breakpoint here and then run the code in the debug mode. it will give you the entire navigation, how the code is moving around in a simulator, because that's the best way to run and understand any kind of the simulator. So we have got a detailed simulator.java. The code is already available here. You can insert a breakpoint and start running it. Once done, we can run the simulation. So this is a snapshot. The dialog box will come. So we can see at the top here one simulator for the IIT scenario, because we gave the name as IIT scenario, and then we get a network here. The network which we have chosen the files, and you can see here on the right hand side the pedestrian nodes comes. All the information about the nodes are available here. The city map of the University of Helsinki is available here. Nodes are available here. The walkways, the pedestrian, the cars, the trams, every kind of the node is available here. So when you run this, this should make the things much more transparent and clear. So you can click it over here, and you can see the nodes moving around. And in the event log, if you look at it, the connection gets up and down between the two nodes when they come into contact with each other and when they start exchanging the messages. So you can click on any one of them. So let's say I clicked on this C62, the car node number 62. At this much amount of time, it has shared these 6 messages: M1, M11, M21, M28, M4, and M5. And if I would like to get the routing information, so I click on the routing information. So here I can see here epidemic router of C62 with 6 messages. So this is not generated the message. No, 0 is the incoming message, 0 is the delivered, 0 is the connection. So only it has done the task of forwarding the messages. It has not done, no message has been generated by itself as such. So this simulation will go on. So we can see that simulation track here and the speed of the rate at which the message is getting generated onto the network. So you can zoom it or zoom out, max up or max down as per your convenience. And on the left hand side, we've got an event log details. So how many number of messages are getting created, relayed, delivered, removed, or there could be due to collision, the message might get aborted also, or there could be a message which might get dropped due to the TTL running to 0. So that's how the simulator has been designed, and it is a good effective simulator. You can have the update speed also, you can zoom up or zoom out also, or if you want to capture the screenshot of it and save it, you capture the screenshot of it and give it in a research paper that actual experiment was getting done. So here I'm using a predefined dataset, the artificial dataset, the synthetic dataset already provided with the one simulator. Alternatively, what I could have done, which normally if you do it, if you're writing a good research paper, if you're carrying out experiment, so you can download the Crawdad dataset. So if you go by the left hand side, dataset and the tools used by the keywords. So if you look around, many number of the predefined toolkit, there are already available datasets. So you can download these datasets. They're all authentic, and you can cite them in your research paper, and that gives a credibility to your research paper that yes, you have done something which is actually worthwhile. And these are the different, if you look at the simulation protocols available here with the domains in which kind of the datasets are available. So it becomes very useful. There are many number of the other open source datasets also, the repositories, but I found this as a good one because the dataset is very accurate, authentic, and reliable. So that is all from my side. If there is any doubt, or I'll be happy to handle it.
So, dear participants, if there is any question, then you can put your questions in the chat box. And once you put your question in chat box, I will also give you opportunity to connect directly with Professor Johari. Please. Or if anybody can directly want to connect, then please ask.
One experience which I would like to share, since I think everyone in this MDP is a teacher, have students with you. The energy of the students is tremendous. It's your experience and their energy that can create a huge opportunity for you, as well as will have a guiding factor for him also. So right now the odd semester is going on. You will have the next year you'll have even semester in your colleges. So almost BTech final year students, the MCA and the MTech, MCA though I do not recommend because research does not come into their process. But yeah, but if they are interested in doing it good, or the MTech, have students with you, give them the flair of the things, and then it's your experience that will take you. Because once you ignite the passion in them, that yes, this is a simulator, this is how it works, and then you give them the demo, and then maybe you give them a time of week or 10 days, they will definitely come with something new. So that's what my experience has been. So but you have to take a lead. So if you would like to do something good, it's your initially, if you just leave it to your students, nothing will come out. So if you would like to really build up as a team, 50% contribution has to be from your side and 50% contribution is from his side. Otherwise, something substantial will not be able to come out. So if you really want some good, exciting work to be getting done, first of all, you have to be energetic. That's what I do it for my own self. So I can only share my experience. Everyone has own experience to share in the research. So my experience is show them the direction and then they will do wonders. No doubt about that.
Well said, Professor Rahul. So all the faculty members are very well experienced faculty members. So definitely they will do follow your suggestions, and many are already following this one. I hope. So if there is any question from your side, participants, then please ask directly to Professor Johari. One question from Mallikarjun Gowda is, can you suggest some solution tool for cognitive radio network?
I have seen that question, but I do not work in the area of cognitive radio networks. So I'm not the right person to actually tell it. It's not my domain. One of the reason is that I am from computer science background. I'm not from the pure electronics background. And for working in the radio networks, cognitive radio network, you require a person who to be very good in electronics and communication area, which is not my domain. I am from the computer science and IT. That is why I work primarily on simulators and not on the real-time hardware-based test beds, because everyone has its own specialization track. So mine is, since I belong to computer science background, so I enjoy working with Java. I enjoy working with Python. I would like writing the code in C++ and C#.NET because that's my easygoing domain. That becomes easy for me as such.
Okay, if there is any more question, then please ask.
So you will have a good maybe else all the days are very packed up for you because I've seen the schedule. But when we meet again, probably on Monday, so make sure we go through the presentation and if you try the simulation on your machine for the MQTT protocol as well as for the one simulator, and if you get any doubt, any problem, you can always discuss with me. So I'm sharing my mail ID here on the chat window. You can drop me a message. So I will be happy to help because I worked on it. So you do not have to waste the time in exploring the things. Any doubt, any question, you can always, I've shared my number also. You can WhatsApp me, you can text me, or you can call me. I will be happy to help as such. On next lecture, we will discuss about the cloud computing and we'll discuss another simulator. That will be another simulator which I want. But before we discuss another simulator, as and when you get the time, try doing the code for the MQTT protocol of the IoT network as well as with the one simulator. And both of them are good. I can put 10 on 10 for that. So that is from my side.
So thank you, sir, for your such a deliberative, elaborative talk on this topic. You have demonstrated well the codes, etc., and live people will try to do it live. And in fact, in next session, you will share your experience on cloud simulators. So initially, we have learned the things on cloud computing, fog computing, and resource provisioning of cloud.
Vidyarthi said that's forte of Vidyarthi said. Yes.
Continue to after that session. Nitesh has also shown something on that. Okay. So it will be good for that. We have also worked something on cloud, so we will also get good experience from your side.
I will try my best.
We will also connect with you after this FDP.
Sure. Anytime.
Yes, all the faculty members who have joined from all over the India will get your experience, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome,
So,
Pawanji. Thanks a lot. Thank you all for listening to the lectures. If you got any doubt, you can always message me. Thank you all. Thank you.
so we have finished it on time also. So, dear participants, you can join the next session by 2:30. Okay, thank you.
Okay.